Do you know what today is? Today marks 365 days away from me getting married. Us getting married, but me in this context because you only ever talk to me. So yes, I will be married in a year's time. I think by this time already, I'll be partying. I'll be deep into like dinner, and I will be raising the roof in a couple of hours. How exciting! Honestly, wow. How have we gotten to this stage of my life already? Not that we're even close yet because it's still 365 days, but amazing. Wow. She's getting old. Adulthood. I don't know. So many things. Anyway, in honor of this wedding being within a year now, and really just like zooming down that hallway, we are gonna chat about wedding stuff today. Okay, so for context, I got engaged in 2022, December. And it was New Zealand. Sensational, such a great time. Awesome engagement. I've already spoken about that in a different pod. So if you haven't listened, I suggest starting from the beginning and just listening all the way through. Anyway, so I got engaged in 2022 and then we decided to get married in 2025. And let me tell you, this was like a decision and a half, like quite a journey choosing like when to get married, because I think it all was really dependent on venue. And for me and Alex, we definitely had a vision of initially had a vision of what we wanted. But I will tell you that this has definitely changed. I do think like fundamentally, the foundational values of like how a wedding will be and like the general vibe is still the same, but small things have changed, or big things, I guess. So I think that's funny. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But what I would say is when you first start your wedding journey, I feel people really rush into it. And I'm actually glad that we are not getting married to 2025, because it's really given us time to like enjoy being engaged and just take our time with the wedding. I find it amazing when people get married, get engaged, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, and then 6 months' time they're getting married, walking down the aisle. I'm like, whoa, that was fast. You're either really good at planning or you have money to pay someone to help you be really good at planning. But I remember when we first started looking at weddings, I was feeling like so much anxiety about, I guess, timing and making sure I was like getting stuff done, because I had other friends around me who got engaged. I think I had 2 other friends who got engaged at a similar time to me. And one of them was like rather efficient. I don't think she was like overly efficient, but it kind of spooked me to think, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. Like I have so much that I need to be doing. I'm going to lose out on venues and stuff if I don't like hurry up. And so I remember we got engaged in December. I think in like February, I was already like, all right, we've got to lock in a venue. Let's go for it. I was being a little bit of like a general in the army about it. I was like, let's do it, Alex. Like we've got to do X, Y, Z. So she was being a bit intense, but I think generally this was coming from feeling like putting pressure on myself, not really from anybody else. And I remember when I was planning, like beginning to plan wedding, everyone asked me was like, how's your wedding planning going? Like, what are you doing for your wedding? I definitely was feeling the pressure, and a lot of people were like, oh, don't worry, like your wedding is like whatever you want it to be. It's your vision. It's not for everyone else. And I was like, I don't know. Like, is that true? Because I feel like it is about like the people that you're inviting to the wedding. I mean, yes, it's about us, but also like you have to keep in consideration all these people around you. So I've definitely been through all the different moods. Like I've been like, oh, nope, just not going to have a wedding, or, oh, I'm going to have like 3 weddings to like celebrate with different family members. And then now I've decided I'm just going to have one. You know what? Because you cannot please the masses. And I've decided to take on that ethos that everyone spreads to me, is that it's about you. So I'm leaning into that. So initially when we were first looking at a wedding, we really wanted to get married, like have a beach wedding. That was our energy. So we actually went to Langkawi in Malaysia to go look at some venues. Super nice, like some beautiful white beaches there. But a lot of these nice beach areas are already owned and private property from hotels, which makes it very tricky because then you're like bound to the hotel for your venue and like food and everything. And let me tell you, you think that like a beach wedding in Southeast Asia would be affordable, but I'm gonna tell you it ain't. If you're thinking about it, think hard. It really is not. I actually like literally have asked, I reckon I asked most Southeast Asian countries. You know, she did a poll out there. She has a lot of emails. I reckon I've emailed like many, hundreds of venues, and they are expensive. Because a lot of the nice places with the nice venues are owned by like 5-star resorts or like super nice hotels who are going to charge you like $150 US or more just for food per person, which is just like a dagger in the heart. And then on top of that, drinks. And then they have all these rules about the venue. And you have to get accommodation there. You have to fly there. Anyway, so the reality of the beach wedding, like we were really trying to make it happen. And it was a point where we were like, you know what? We just got to stop Gretchen Weenusing this. I'm trying to reference Mean Girls, but suddenly I have like feel like I haven't watched that movie in a while. But her name is Gretchen Weenus, seeing it, and stop trying to make fetch happen. So we decided to pull away from the beach venue. And I think like also keeping in mind, like we definitely have a budget. Like I have some friends out there, or I know people generally who are just spending like quite a lot on their wedding. And for me, yes, like a wedding is a nice event. Like I don't want to detract at all from it being a nice experience for myself and like the value and experience that it is going to be. But at the same time, I'm not going to like pay hundreds of thousands of dollars because I don't have the money, and two, it's just, for me, it doesn't align with my values of like something I would spend all that money on. So because we have a budget, it is great because it gives us a North Star of like, well, I guess it gives us a compass of like, okay, this is your budget and this is what you're working with. And whenever you kind of get like too excited or cray about certain things that you want, you just remember like, no, you agreed to yourself that you had a budget and that's not within it. So long story short, for venues, the venues in Southeast Asia were just like surprisingly too expensive. And I also definitely didn't want to get married in Thailand. I looked at Vietnam, and I would say that I find it also a little bizarre to get married somewhere that you've never been before at all. Like I've been to Vietnam before, but have I been to that resort that I was looking at? No. Do I have a strong connection to Vietnam? No. So I was like, it doesn't quite make sense. So our criteria for our venue was, one, somewhere that we like is a destination wedding. So somewhere that we are really connected to, that we find like we have a personal connection to. 2, within our budget. 3, somewhere that's like just outdoorsy, because we're outdoorsy people. And so those were our 3 criterias. We also looked at Myanmar. We used to live in Myanmar for like 2 years. Absolutely love the country. Really wanted to go. But then I was set to go for a wedding there in like 2023. And it kind of fell through for multiple reasons. But just like the logistics of getting into the country was just like quite difficult. And I was like, I really cannot impose this on my guests, because I just feel I would feel bad to make you like travel as a destination wedding, but then also have to pay like additional fees to get into the country because of political issues, essentially. So yeah. But essentially, we ended up deciding on New Zealand. So if you don't know, Alex is a Kiwi, but we have travelled to the South Island many a time and absolutely love it. So we ended up choosing a venue that I think actually that we had ended up being to, like we'd already visited. But we visited it never thinking that would be where we would get married, which I think is kind of cool. We always seem to do that with things. Like we went to Myanmar on a holiday and then like 6 months later we're like, oh, we're going to move here. So it's bizarre things that happen for us. It's a bizarre trend. And so, yeah, anyway, now we have a venue that we're very happy with. And it's been funny because people have recently been asking me, because now our wedding is like 2025. People have been asking me like, oh, like, how's your wedding planning going? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's good. And I realized that my mini freak out that I had last year in 2023 kind of paid off, because I am now like overly organized. I looked in the venue, catering, photographer, got my dresser ready all last year. And so now I have a whole year to just organize like the smaller details, which is, I think kind of wonderful. For me and my product manager persona, and I've also realized in planning this wedding that like my job title has really become like my personality in a way, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And I think it's funny. So anyway, long story short, we are very organized now. And we're now just looking in like all these smaller details. So I think that's the beauty of actually planning your wedding like quite a bit in advance, but also like giving yourself the time to breathe. Because I don't feel stressed about our wedding really. Because I feel I have everything where it needs to be. And it's just a matter of like ticking the boxes and doing the smaller details now. But all the big things are sorted out. Okay, but in doing all this wedding planning, I think something that's been really interesting is like there are these funny little things that come up. And I feel like they're totally like these like societal, there are these moments where you question like, is this a social norm? Is this etiquette? Is this okay to do? But what I've realized with weddings is like, it is such a Pandora's box. Like you can just do whatever you want. I've heard stories. My dad was telling me a story about that they heard on the radio where this couple asked people to bring their own cutlery to the wedding. And I'm just like, wow, like I would never do that. But honestly, anything goes. Because a lot of guests that I've spoken to, it's like, oh, well, it's your wedding, it's your big day. Like who are we to kind of dispute what you want? We're just going to roll with it. But at the same time, I've also watched like a few videos where people have had telling stories about like beef that they've had from weddings. And I'll tell you from my experiences, I do think observing people in a wedding and like how they behave and like all this sort of stuff shows you a lot about a person, and it's very interesting. And some things like are not the best, you know. I've had my own personal experiences where I was like, oh, that's how you are. Maybe I will just keep a mental note of that because that's very interesting. Anyway, so one thing that I've been thinking a lot about is invites and plus ones. I genuinely don't have that many friends, but our guest list is actually quite big because I have so much family, like way too much family. And a lot of it's like extended family, and I'm not gonna lie, not everybody's getting an invite. It's like you have to limit at some point when you have like a family that's like 60, 70 people on one side. You just cannot service all the masses. And once again, going back to the ethos, just gonna do what I wanna do and make me happy because it's my wedding. So I think invites is a tough one because like I naturally don't want to like offend anyone too badly, but also at the same time I'm a bit of a savage, so I'm just like, oh, I'm okay to like just bite the bullet and not invite you and just like tough titties if you feel hurt about it. But it is what it is. So my invite list personally was like quite, I think, straightforward. I have always had like the same consistent friends for ages now, like more than 10 years plus. So I feel like they're all getting invites. For me, it's like the plus ones. So I have some people that I'd never hang out with like their plus one, like their significant other, but they've been together for like years. And my question is like, do you have to invite them? Some friends have been like, no, like absolutely not. If you don't hang out with them normally, why would you invite them to your wedding? But then at the same time, I'm like, what? Like that person's probably going to get married, and then like, wouldn't it be awkward to just not invite that person to the wedding, and then like that's kind of the tone you set. So my thing is like, okay, I think if I can afford, I'll just budget you into it. And then for those who I actually don't know that well or at all, I just am not going to put them as an invite. But yeah, it's a very contentious topic. Also, I'm a big no on recent relationships. You're not getting an invite if I haven't met you, or like you're a relationship that's been around for like 6 months. I'm like, no. If your relationship started within 6 months of the wedding date, if you're like 6 months at the time of the invite, I'm like, okay, fine. But I had to have met you, and I also have to like you as a person. So I think invites is a real tricky one. And I have my own personal strategy of how we're going about invites to manage the people. But I'm not going to share that here because I haven't sent them out and I don't want to start drama amongst the people. Okay, the other one is, so I was saying at the start, like you have this vision of what you want, And I was having this discussion with this girl at work who was also planning her wedding. And I was like, she got married in like September last year. And then I was like, I guess like in the process of planning, and we were just chatting, and I was saying, oh, like, yeah, trying to find a venue, and like, you definitely have this vision of what you want. Like, we originally wanted a beach wedding, like, blah, blah, blah. You want to have all these decorations. You see all this stuff on like Instagram and all that sort of stuff. And you're like, yep, it's going to be super nice. And then you quickly realize when you start talking to vendors and getting quotes, you're like, no way am I spending money on that. How much does that cost? That costs X, Y, Z. And so the best advice I got from one of these wedding planners was that if you have a budget, you need to prioritize what it is that you're spending your money on. So what is like, as in, what is it that you want out of the event? She was like, usually I ask people to choose around like decorations, food, or like the vibe or something like that, right? And I was like, oh, that's such a good point, because you really cannot, like, if you have a budget, you cannot fully service all three with, yeah, there's just no way, I personally think. Unless you have different, like, standards of whatever, like McDonald's for dinner. I don't know. Anyway, so that really helped me. And then for me, like, my priority is definitely people having a good time. And in my view, it's like, what do you need for that? Just food, good music, space to dance, some alcohol or beverages, boom. At a party is up and happening. And so keeping that in mind, that really helped me to kind of like level set what I wanted from my wedding and really change like my vision. And as I was saying before, like, your budget really helps you be very clear as to like what's in and what's out. Like, recently for our venue, I saw this super nice like decor, and it was so beautiful, like all this like draping and stuff. And then I reached out to the vendor that did it and asked him how much it was. And I was like, it's like, excuse me, I did not have the money for that. So I'm so happy for people who do, but honestly, no. It was like 20,000 New Zealand dollars for decor. And I was like, no gracias. But also, what all of my investigation has led me to, in terms of like, you look on, because nowadays everything's on Instagram, right? Everybody has like all these weddings. Like, once you get sucked in that deep hole, you see all of the aesthetic and everything that people are doing, and you quickly realize people are spending so much money on their weddings, and you're just like, whoa. I reckon the average wedding now costs, for like our generation, I reckon it's like 70 grand. Australian or more, but that's a lot of money, just saying. I feel like 70 grand's okay, but like, I feel like people are spending more than 100 if you're going crazy with these florals and these like some of these decorations. Blows my mind. Good for y'all. If you have the money, I guess spend it. So yeah, just back to my point, I just think like if you haven't started wedding planning, or if you're ever going to do it, whatever, or planning an event, like, your vision versus what you can actually afford and the feasibility of it is such an interesting realization. And I'm just going to like forewarn you, enjoy that realization. It is very humbling. My last thing that I wanted to touch on for weddings that I thought that I've been like kind of realizing after going to different weddings and experiencing other people's weddings is, I think nowadays, because everybody is on social media and like even Pinterest or like any blog you see, everyone has like the same inspirations and vibe. And weddings is just becoming like a trendy thing. Like, obviously you have like trendy things that people wear, or like makeup and looks or whatever. But I feel like it's filtering out into weddings. And so now this is like struggle of like, how do you make your wedding unique and not so like a playbook? Because I have been to some weddings where I felt like it was a bit like a playbook, like, oh, okay, do this now and do that now. And you're like, oh, this is just like ticking the boxes of everything you kind of see online. And I am super cognizant of like not having a wedding of that vibe, and having some sort of like personalized or uniqueness to my wedding, because God forbid I spend all this money and it's just like a cardboard cutout type wedding that you could just recreate anywhere. And that's why I find it interesting with all these people getting married, like in destination places that are super hyped and going for a certain aesthetic that's like very, very like common folk now. Because why spend all that money just to have the same photos, the same experience that everybody else has? I don't know, guys, filtering back into this problem with society nowadays and like lack of creativity and originality from just our way of thinking and being creative. I will not delve further into that because y'all don't want me to get deep in that web again. But all I have to say is I'm going to try and make sure my wedding's got some sort of originality to it. I mean, obviously, like there is normal formalities that you will do, but I will try my best to have some sort of uniqueness. Anyway, I will keep you guys updated. Let me know if you want to hear more about my wedding. I will keep you updated with like ongoing things, and maybe I'll have some fun stories to share as I get closer to my wedding and as it continues on. But I hope you enjoyed this pod and 365 days till I get married. But yes, if you're not excited for me, I am excited for me. So I'll see you in the next pod. Bye.